3 months ago, I was out in the paddock here in beautiful Stroud, New South Wales with Rod, and he was moving his strip grazing fence, and we're having a look at his strip grazing setup, and there's been a few questions. So Rodney, Kylie, questions answered today. We've got a few questions from viewers about your strip grazing system, because it's different to what people expect to see, isn't it? You've got a large loafing paddock.
Yeah, that's correct, Tim. And what I'm about is not saying that what we do is fit for everyone. This is just what we've learned over 30 years.
But it's fit for you guys. I mean, you work full-time on the mines.
Yeah.
Kylie, you run a thriving business called Clever Gate Company. If you guys haven't seen Clever Gates, check out the link at the end of this video and you'll be amazed at their gates. But Kylie, sometimes you have to change the strip grazing yourself. Sometimes Rod has to. Sometimes you get to do it together like you did today.
Yep.
And sometimes you might have to move the cattle 12 hours later than would be ideal, and you need somewhere for those cattle to go where they've got water and feed.
Correct. That's why we have a larger loafing paddock, so that if neither one of us can actually get here on time, the cattle aren't stressed. They've got plenty of green pick still and access to water. So hence the reason a larger loafing paddock.
So it's a perfect example of the adoption of a system that's quite precise to your personal situation, so that you're looking after the welfare of the cattle as best you can.
Yes.
Now, I've also had some questions about the stage at which you move the cattle on from one strip to the next. Some people were surprised at the colour of the grass, but we're in a tropical environment. These are tropical breeds of grass. Rod, when you take the green tops off, you get brown grass, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. So there is quite a bit of dry matter left, but we put that to use by mulching it back into the paddock.
Yeah, right. So you actually go over it with a mulcher on the back of a tractor and build up your soil carbon, don't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and get that seed bed operating again.
Yeah, that's correct.
Kylie, how long would it take you if you were on your own to move the cattle?
So it depends on how many fences I actually have to shift, but when I'm doing about 3, it probably takes me an hour.
That's not too bad, is it?
not
You're
bad.
moving 3 mobs of cattle in an hour.
Yep.
And how many acres do you have here in Stroud?
We have approximately 340 acres, 360.
So it's a fair distance to get over, because they're not all blocks right next to each other. There's a
No.
bit of driving in between as well.
Yeah, we just drive in between, but yeah, I quite enjoy doing it.
Looks like the girls and the kids are enjoying the nice fresh pick. How long are you guys going to leave them on this strip, Rod, before you move them?
So they'll be 2 days feeding on this,
Yep.
and then we'll shift it, say 2 days time, and they'll have another slice, and yeah, go again.
And with the large loafing paddock, once again, we have to emphasise it's large for a good reason. Not only was that where the original fence was from 50 years ago, so it makes sense to keep it in place if it's still working, but it also means that you've got really good husbandry of your cattle, really good welfare. If you don't get to this strip in time, they've got somewhere else to go and have a pick.
That's correct.
How much do you find them utilising the loafing paddock versus the strip?
Oh, look, I think that they utilise the loafing paddock quite well. Often when I come down to, or we come down to shift the fences, a lot of the time they're already back off the strip grazing and back in the loafing paddock.
Because animals will graze until they're full, then they'll go and they want to go somewhere to ruminate, and you're finding, Kylie, that they're going back into the loafing paddock to ruminate.
They are.
Now, Rod, dry matter equivalents and all of that sort of thing, we've had questions about that. What's the DSE in the paddock and all the rest of it? You don't worry so much about that, because this business for you is not your main business.
No.
Tell me a little bit about what you're concerned about when you're looking at a paddock.
Yeah, so I put down, I do a lot of observing when I look at the cattle and the feed that they're eating. Obviously, with different weather conditions, our feed changes. So constantly we're always assessing how much feed they've got, how dry it is, and how much feed they've got in front of them. So we make those decisions sort of on the run. Okay, they've got less feed, so we've got to maybe shift it twice as far as we'd normally shift it.
So you still stick to a 2-day rotation, but you just change the distance in which you bring the fence out.
Depending, and again, that depends on the weather and all the things, and how much feed we've got ahead of ourselves and all those sorts of things. So it's constant changing.
What height of grass do you aim to leave behind the cattle?
Look, you know, obviously probably more the better. For ground coverage and moisture containment, and I guess so that's what we're trying to do is make sure they haven't just eaten it right down to the bare bones.
You're going to try and leave a couple of inches at least of grass up
if
there.
we can, yeah.
Now, you're not using the standard tread-ins with an electric tape. You're using wire with the old steel pickets.
Yeah.
and you're banging them in at a slight angle facing towards the cattle. Can you explain to people, this is a high rainfall area, why you're avoiding using tread-ins?
Well, we have used them before. I don't think we haven't tried that.
Yeah.
But in a high rainfall area where our ground's quite soft a lot of times, again, the cattle have the ability to actually push and maybe knock them over sometimes. And the same goes with if it's a dry time, is pushing them in by foot with your foot. It becomes it's a lot harder.
So you got a little mash hammer and your standard steel post, it's just as easy for
so
you.
that's why we decided just to use the steel post. The idea of leaning the posts over, we had one particular cow, she'd worked it out that if she come with a forward and she could actually push the post over. So by leaning it, it was a little bit harder. That cow's obviously gone now. But she had the ability to push the fence over, and then when she got the fence over, all the others just enjoyed the spoils of her efforts. So we've always been aware that it needs to be a positive fence that they can't get over. They've got to be educated that this is something they can't push over really easy.
Well guys, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for answering the viewer questions. Hopefully we have.
Yep.
And people can go away with a better understanding of the fact that not every system's the same, and not every system is going to work the same for everyone. And you've got to design farming systems, don't you, Kylie, to meet your individual circumstance.
Absolutely. We all lead different lives, so we all require something different.
Guys, don't forget, hit the little subscribe button and check out the video that's coming up on the Clever Gate if you're one of the 12 people who hasn't seen it already.